Let's talk about orthographic awareness. To put it in simple terms, orthographical awareness refers to letter positions. Have you ever written a word and immediately noticed it was misspelled? And then you try to write it again and you still notice it was misspelled. You know it's misspelled, but you can't seem to figure out how to spell that word. Or you may have seen those famous exercises where you're shown misspelled words in a sentence and you can still read them just fine. Well, some of it has to do with orthography and your knowledge of letter position. Let's talk about two kinds of orthographical awareness. The first one is receptive coding. Receptive coding is being able to identify the designated letter positions in a given word after a brief exposure. Okay, let's say I show you the word once, and then I cover it up, and then I ask you to identify the letter positions. For you and I, it's very simple for two reasons. One, the word went is in our sight words. We can read it just fine, and we can write it easily. We also have letter knowledge. We know that W and T cannot be a word. We know that every word needs a vowel. But if we don't know that, then it's going to be challenging, which most of the students fall into that category. One, the word went might not be in their sight word. And two, they might not know that every word needs a vowel. I want to give you an example of how hard this is for students. Let's look at nonsense words. Let's say I give you the word OPI and I cover it up real quick. And I ask you to identify the letter positions. It may take you a minute to think about the words or the letter positions and where they were, because that word is not a real word and it's not in your sight words. So when kids see the sight words or high frequency words, they also are thinking the same way that you are right now. That word has no meaning for them and it's not in their sight word. So they may have to take a minute and actually think about it. However, after many exposures or multiple exposures, they also will be able to identify that word as easily as you and I are able to identify the word went. Because what this exercise does is it forces them to actually pay attention to the letter positions. The next orthographic awareness is the expressive coding. Expressive coding is a little bit more challenging than receptive coding. Receptive coding, you're given the options of the letters and you get to choose which one. Receptive coding, you get to produce the letters. So you are also given a word, either a sight word, a high frequency word, a real word, or a nonsense word, and then your job is to identify or write down the first letter, the middle letters, or letter, and the last letter. This is in an area where differentiation can be implemented. If you have a student that doesn't pay attention to the first letter, you may focus on the first letter only. If you have a student who does not pay attention to the last letter, you may focus on the last letter. Or if they don't pay attention to the middle letters, then your focus might be on the middle letters. We have all seen students who sound out each word. You would show them the word not, and they would sound it out, not. And then you show them again, and then they would sound it out, not. And then you show them again, they would sound it out, not. And that's great that they're using their phonic knowledge. We want them to be able to sound out, but we don't want them to do it again and again and again. Our job or our goal is for them to identify that high frequency words and actually place that high frequency word into their sight word. We want them to see it and automatically be able to read that word. And that's why orthographic awareness is important, because when they are paying attention to the letter patterns, they are able to store that high frequency word into their long-term memory. It also helps them when they're spelling. If you ask them to spell the word cake, and instead of spelling K-A-K-E, they will spell C-A-K-E, because they are going to remember their letter patterns, and it's going to look weird when they write K-A-K-E in their head. They may not know that the K is a C, but they will know it's wrong. At that point, they're not only using their phonological awareness, but they're also using their orthographical knowledge. And that is what we want. We want them to use all their tools to help them become better readers and better writers.